You're listening to The Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, on Alternative Talk, AM 1150. Now, back to the show with local mortgage and finance expert, Tina Mitchell.
Welcome back to The Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, and my co-host, Keelan Harvey, your local mortgage experts right here on 1150 AM KKNW, the Saturday, June 2nd show. We bring in studio each week the best of the best experts in our local market on everything money. We're here to help you in today's economy. If you're hearing our show at a different time or day, you are listening to a rebroadcast, but we're here to answer any questions that you may have or connect you with the guests that we have on the show today. Call the show at 1-855-400-1150. Again, that's 1-855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com. And our last guest in studio for today's show is Erwin Richmon and Jason Erwin with Erwin Richmon Real Estate, buying and selling in a competitive market. Welcome, you guys. Thanks for joining us for the show.
Yeah, we're excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you.
And a little bit about Brian and Jason. Erwin Richmon Real Estate is a real estate team made up of Jason Erwin and Brian Richmon. Jason's background is financial planning and CPA accounting, and Brian's background is retail sales. Jason and Brian teamed up in 2018 and bring in over 20 plus years of sales experience into the real estate world. They both knew that there was a better way to do real estate, a way in which they could educate and serve their guests one client at a time. They work in a creative win-win-win scenarios in each transaction, making sure that every party leaves happy and satisfied. They meet each client where they are at, understand their needs, and come up with a solution to solve their problems and solve their needs. So thanks again, you guys, for coming in.
So I'd have to imagine there's some advantages to a team. So Jason, what are each of your roles on your team?
Exactly. The reason why we set up our team the way it was is because I've had years of experience kind of on the buyer side. And over time, you start realizing how a buyer operates, what they're doing, and that will impact when you're working with a seller. So right now, my main focus over the past couple of years has been on listings. And so when I take the approach to educate a seller, or when I sit down with them, I take it from the approach of how is a buyer going to come to you and see your house. So strictly, I work on listings, and then Brian has been successful at working with buyers. And then really, realistically, it just helps your schedule out during the week, because a buyer's schedule, working with buyers, is completely different than with listings. And so far so good. Everything's going well.
So, for example, on a given weekend, Jason, we got a house that we have a listing on. He'll be doing an open house. Then we'll have clients that are trying to buy houses. Then I'm out showing houses. And so we're able to handle multiple clients at the same time because he can handle the sellers, and then I'm out showing the buyers.
Yeah, nice.
Makes
And
a lot of sense.
most real estate agents wear both hats and represent both the buyer and the seller and have the understanding of both sides. But it would be nice to just have that focus and to really be able to focus on that one side. So, Jason, when should a seller actually contact a real estate professional?
Ideally, as soon as possible, but I understand everyone's constraints with work and school and kids and everything like that. So if you can, to me, real estate's pretty seasonal in this area, just because of not just because of the weather, but also schools and kids. Basically, you'd want, ideally, a listing. Anytime you list a house, you'd love a couple months, or maybe 3 months, or 6 months even, right? Because nobody wants to realistically sell through the holidays. So if you can start working with somebody at the beginning of the year, kind of coach them through a few things. What do they have to do in terms of, what's their budget? How much can they spend? Things like that. It really allows a smart listing broker to understand their timeline and budget. So ideally, a couple months, but a little bit more is preferable.
And with anything else, if you're planning on doing something, really right up front, the first thing is to strategize and to see what you're thinking actually makes sense or not. And then you can move to the next stage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sounds like all about having a plan, and sooner the better. So being the listing expert, Jason, what are the key components to a successful listing?
Exactly. So the key for me over the course of the few years in helping listings, it's all about three components. And the first thing obviously is the price. Everybody wants to worry about how much can I get, what am I looking at, and how can I get the top dollar. Well, we focus on price in a way where after you do a CMA and you find a range, you understand, you also want to factor in what they owe on the house, where they might be moving to, how much money they want for their next down payment, things like that. So we want to find a sweet spot where we're not at the top, but we're not at the bottom. Ideally, you want to find the middle range. Also, that will market, that price will market to the majority of buyers anyways. Number two, you want to focus on the marketing aspect. So when I think of marketing today is, again, think about how a buyer sees your house. They're first going to look at their phone, on their smartphone. Mm-hmm. They're going to look at the photos. They're going to see if there's any videos. They're going to check out your, all of your social platforms. They're going to look at your reviews. And you want to have everything possibly perfect on those outlets. So that's what we focus on, such as if somebody's
much a coach with Aaron, our first guest.
Exactly. I'm a big fan of coaching.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how you want to look at it. And then now, especially in the past couple of years, the video has taken off in a way I've never, real estate is finally experiencing this. If you don't catch somebody's attention in a couple minutes or a couple seconds even, what are you going to do to make yourself stand out? So what we do is we always do video. We're always doing the Facebook Live or videos on our open houses. We're always doing pretty professional. We have an ex-Hollywood photographer, videographer that does work for us, and really trying to make a nice commercial almost for the listing. So marketing is key. So if you can catch them on the smartphone or on the laptop or at home when they're looking at their tablets, that's the best thing. So that marketing-wise, that's where you got to win them. And the last thing, the third component a lot of sellers don't understand is the availability of their property. One quick example is we have a listing going on right now, but due to a couple of small kids, it's very hard to get an appointment set when you have kid bedtimes. You just can't, like most buyers are kind of out there, hey, can we go check this house out on an evening? Well, it's pretty difficult around dinner time with little kids. So that's what I'm experiencing right now. So the availability aspect is what I coach on. When can you be out of the house? Because buyers, when they see your house and if you've done your due diligence on price and you have exceptional photos, then buyers want to see it, and you've got to make yourself available to be out of the house.
Yeah.
And that's the key. Those are the three big things that I focus on. I try not to make it too complicated.
Yeah.
Those are the three. Three
are pretty easy. So Jason, if it came to the biggest mistake that somebody is making and not getting top dollar on their home when they're selling, what would that be?
Well, the first one, it would probably be the repairs on a house.
Okay.
I can't tell you enough how when I walk into a house, and I myself, I'm not a contractor, but I can see repairs, visible repairs that need to be done on a home, and they think, oh, that's okay. And I was like, no, the buyer's going to call that out. We need to repair those items, specifically things that are functional items. And so when you're looking at a house, I look at it from top to bottom, such as, we live in an area where it rains all the time. So let's focus on the water aspect. So, start with the chimney, start with the roof. Let's start with the windows and siding and work our way down to the crawl space and find out some of the big structural items that might need to be repaired first. If those are okay, let's move on to the second items. And the second category could be potential like actual things that help you operate in the house, like your the garage doors opening, the actual doors, the windows, the stove, the washer and dryer. Making sure that when a buyer comes in, the seller is ready, so there aren't going to be any problems when they're under contract. And then lastly is the aesthetics aspect. So the other things that they might do, to get the top dollar, or things that they might not focus on is the aesthetics. And so they want to get the yard prepped and maybe do some touch up around the edges of the house. But mainly, I just want to have a functioning house for a new buyer. I think that's kind of the win for both sides.
Yeah, makes sense.
So we've got all the blood, sweat, and tears into getting the house ready. We've checked all our boxes on our social media. Everything's looking great. So what happens when you receive an offer?
So what happens when you receive an offer? A lot of times sellers, I'll deal with a lot of times where they bought a house one time or they've never sold a house. They've bought, and recently in this market, a lot of people bought. So we got to walk them through that because it is kind of stressful. They think once they get an offer, oh, this is great, we can just take that money to the bank. But it's not true. You could potentially still have 20 to 40 days left to negotiate. And what I always say is that's where the kind of like the magic starts to happen in terms of now the real negotiation begins. We've got to focus on holding firm on your price. If you've done all your preparation on the home, made the house great, made the price was great, awesome. The pictures are great. You've done prep. You've fixed everything. You've got to be prepared to hold firmly on your price and understand that just because there might be low inventory or something, we've got to hold on that price, and we can't just concede items just because it's little things, right? Because that's where I'm kind of coming from the listing side, is if you give us enough preparation, we're not going to go down on the price, right? Because you've done, like I said, you've done that due diligence. So, but once you get under contract, I mean, you've got to be patient, be ready to negotiate, and hold firm until the end.
Yeah, love that. Brian, so let's go over to you. We've talked a little bit about with Jason on the seller side, since he really does that for the team in representing your sellers. On the buyer side, where are you educating your buyers that they can really help themselves in the purchase of their new home?
Yeah, totally. It's interesting because here we are in Seattle, and it's a pretty aggressive market, but I find that there are advantages that buyers can do to put themselves ahead. And one of the things that I see is I look for opportunities where kind of like the diamonds in the rough. Okay. And so many people go out and they look at houses as soon as they hit the market. And you can do that, but you're automatically at a disadvantage because everybody else is doing that too.
Yes.
So I usually go and I target houses that have been on the market for like 10 plus days, where I'm not going to be going up against as much competition.
Love it.
In addition, I'm also looking at, I look at the photos. And there's plenty of houses out there that have bad photos. That's just the reality of it. Or that landscaping wasn't done. Basically, what are the houses that other people didn't want that are amazing houses that just maybe were overlooked? For example, like there's a house that we closed in December that we got at a $50,000 price reduction because the photos were bad. It was, I think they were photos from like the previous listing. I mean, they were really bad.
Wow.
And then it wasn't staged. And I'm like, this is an awesome house in an awesome neighborhood, and we got it for $50,000 less than asking price. And then,
this was this was in December.
That was in December.
Wow.
I think also the time of the year was kind of played a factor. And then also right now, Keelan and I are actually working with a deal where we got a buyer an $8,000 seller credit.
Yeah.
In this market, we asked for 10.
I know. I saw that coming when Keelan and I were talking. I was like, "What? I can't even remember the last time."
When does that happen?
But we asked for 10,000, and we ended up getting 8. So, and I think part of it too, like when a lot of people just go and pick like any real estate broker. Oh, I'm just buying a house. Who cares who my real estate broker is? But like you want to have somebody who knows how to negotiate deals.
Yeah.
And that is my job as a buyer's agent is. Number one, to find you the house, but then number two, to negotiate a deal, and I do that through, whether it be the price of the house or maybe how long it's been on the market, or through the inspection. If something comes back on the inspection report, I am hounding the selling agent to say, "Hey, give us a price reduction," because that's my job.
Yeah.
And so a good broker, if they're doing it, they should actually get houses under asking value, not at or above. So if you're paying over asking value, you're not, your broker's, you're either going for a house that everybody else wants, which there's not much you can do, or your broker's not doing what they need to be doing.
Yeah.
So.
All right. So speaking of working together, why work with your team versus my friend who's a real estate broker?
Which you guys are our friends, but one of our listeners, their friend's a real estate broker. So,
well, sometimes you get pressured into that. Like, let's say your family or friends are a real estate broker, and they're not doing it full time. I mean, the biggest thing with our team is that we're in it every day, 7 days a week. And so you're kind of looking for somebody who kind of is fully immersed in the buying or the selling aspect of a house. And so that's kind of where we're focused on. If you're looking at a friend and they're like, yeah, you should get into real estate, or let me help you buy a house. I mean, that's not the pitch I want to hear. I mean, I want to do some research. If you're a buyer or a seller, you want to do your research and find somebody who's in this business day in, day out, and looking at every aspect of that industry. So for us, the team approach works. We sit down with clients and they love our approach.
Yeah. So we've got 1 minute to wrap up the show here. The importance of working with a buyer's agent versus a large corporation.
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways, in a large corporation, you're just one of many. Versus when you're working with a buyer's agent, or even a seller's agent like Jason, our job is to work with you individually, find out exactly what your needs are, and find out what we can do to help solve your needs. So sometimes, houses need to be fixed up, and we'll work with contractors to get contractors in there. Sometimes, you have an odd schedule. Well, great. My schedule will be odd just as yours is. So if we have to go look at houses at 8 o'clock in the morning, we're looking at houses at 8 o'clock in the morning. So, when you work with somebody who's an individual who knows your needs, then you're gonna have a lot better chance of buying the house that you want and buying the house at the price you want.
Well, thanks you guys so much for joining us in studio. It's been a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
And this is your host and mortgage expert Tina Mitchell signing off for the day.
And your co-host, Keelan Harvey.
Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. We look forward to speaking with you next Saturday right here, same time, same place, 11:50 a.m. KKNW. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.